Welcome everyone to the first public lecture, and not the last, offered by the Mahone Bay chapter of SCANS, the Seniors College Association of Nova Scotia. A chance meeting led to today. Last summer, David and Karen offered a table for sale. Another neighbor, Jennifer Corson, who's also here, bought it and showed it to me while I was out walking. She mentioned the person's vast gardens and that he donates food to the Lunenburg food bank. I was intrigued and immediately texted him to ask for a tour. Harvey and I trekked over and were astonished at the vast amount of food he produces on a very small plot of land. He gave us a book he had written. I read it and laughed out loud throughout. And then my SCANS brain pounced, and I asked if he would give some talks about his experiences. He eventually yielded, and here we are.
Thank you very much, sir. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, my name is David Jarvis, known as Jarvo or Davis Jarvis in Africa, where I spent quite a bit of time. And speaking of chance meetings, this whole journey really comes from a chance meeting. It was a real dark and stormy night in Lisbon, the one in Portugal, when I first bumped into Karen. I call her Kay because I'm inherently lazy, but that's another point. We were both delayed in Lisbon. She was a corporate accountant who'd had a meeting in Lisbon. She was on her way back to Holland, where she lived, and she worked normally in Germany. And I was a Royal Air Force air mobility officer. Now, at the moment we met, I was actually stationed in Naples, at the NATO HQ there. I'd stupidly volunteered to assist the African Union in putting troops into Dartmouth. So I was going to a meeting in Lisbon. I'll show you a few of these photos before I move on, shall I? This is Baghdad Airport, Iraq, Sierra Leone, and this one's in Kenya. I spent 3 years in Kenya, and the kids there love to spit on my tattoos and try and rub them off. I was permanently sticky. Anyway, so on that dark and stormy night, I was sitting accidentally surfing porn in the business centre, and it was accidentally, despite what the security people will tell you, when this woman plonked herself down next to me and started talking at me. Now, I was actually with my mate Tell. Now, Tell is a US Air Force officer, captain. And no word of a lie, this was taken at a hotel called the Dark Arse. Dark Arse, it was in Senegal, in Dakar. It was a horrible place. It was full of these things, doors slammed all night. I had a cold shower, not by choice, but as the senior officer, I got first use of the toilet seat, so it wasn't all bad. So we were in Lisbon, and that's when I met her. And I suddenly found out she'd been reading this book about how to introduce yourself to people. And for some stupid reason, she chose me as her first victim. Now, I think that some women instinctively know class when they see it. Now, you can't teach this stuff, you know? So there's a number here. I worked in the Sahara for a while, an oil cruise, a bit of rain on. The black and white one there, that was taken outside Hamley's toy shop in London. And it's me and my imaginary friend, Timothy. I'm the one at the back. If you can see Timothy, come and see me at the end and I'll give you the number for my therapist. Now this one is terrifying, I know. This is at my sister's wedding. As you can probably tell from the photograph, she hated me. I'm wearing a purple safari suit. Ignore the hairstyle and the multicoloured shoes. For now, there's worse to come, believe me. So, this suit, safari suits were actually in fashion for about a 2-week period in the 1970s. Never the purple ones, but crimpling that's since been outlawed by the UN because of the way it creates static electricity. So this whole service was punctuated by the crackles and screams of people who got too close to me. When I went outside, squirrels were sticking to me. It was awful. So, we exchanged details. She didn't really understand what I was doing, neither did I at the time. And she went on her merry way back to Germany, and I went off to Africa to make myself and everyone around me miserable. It's a hobby of mine. So, while I was in Africa, Kay had a map on the wall above her desk, and she tracked me wherever I went. And she was able to get hold of me wherever I went as well, amazingly. I think they call it stalking nowadays, I'm not sure. And me and Tel would be sat in a backstreet restaurant in Lagos, and the phone would ring and Tel would say, "That's Karen," and we'd laugh. One time it scared the crap out of me. So this gives you some idea. This is in Enugu in Nigeria, moving troops from there, and the commanding officer decided that because of the security situation in that area, it'd be rather nice if I had an armed escort. So we weren't allowed outside at all without these guys. Very jolly. The guy on my left there, Flight Lieutenant Sully, never smiled. The concept of uniform was alien to him, which is why he's wearing Wellington boots. And his helmet was so tight that at first I thought he had close-cropped green hair. It was really odd. Ghanaian policemen, this is during one of my fascinating passenger briefings, they fell asleep immediately. And to give you some idea of the complications we were working with, as NATO were paying for the aircraft for the African Union to move their troops into Darfur. So here we've got an Italian aircraft bringing back Ugandan policemen to Kigali in Rwanda to board a Botswanan Defence Force C-130 crewed by Americans. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. And I spent about a month in Rwanda. It all went totally wrong there. And Kay actually said, "Oh, I'm going to pop down and see him. It'd be really nice." So she tried to get all her jabs, everything. But it got too complicated. And to be honest, I was quite pleased about that because we had a number of incidents in Kigali. Yeah, danger follows me. I was in the restaurant in this hotel. And this hotel, I tried to book from Nigeria with Tel, and I said to Tel, "There's a review here. It says it's got more prostitutes than clients." He went, "Oh. Has he got a pool?" I said, "Yeah, he's got a pool. Sounds okay to me." So we went to this hotel, and yes, there were more prostitutes than clients. But they left us alone. We only found out a few days later. Everybody thought we were a couple, so we got left well alone. But I was in the restaurant in this hotel. It was a French chef. I won't go any further than that. I was having a civil conversation with him about the difference between raw eggs and a runny omelette, which he wasn't understanding. And they tend to put the butter in a pile of ice to stop it from melting. Great, but you can't spread it on your toast, it just gouges lumps in it. So I would put my toast in the toaster and just rest the butter on the edge, just to warm it up a little bit. Arguing with the chef, forgot about that. Loud fuck noise, all the lights go out. Very funny to me, people stuck in the lift for 4 hours. And the other good thing was that Tel was downstairs on the running machine and clattered into the wall in front of him. He was very happy. So I thought when we had a bit of a lull, 3 weeks, no aircraft, I'd go up and see Karen, so we could get together. We've been writing to each other for 3 months, old-fashioned romance, it'd be nice to get together. And I was chatting about that with my best mate, Steve. This is Steve. As you can see, I hang around with him because he's uglier than me. And he hangs around with me because he thinks I'm uglier than him. It's an ideal partnership. This is at his wedding, which is in Kigali. He lived in Kigali, to be honest. But he was working on a mine clearance project in the South Sudan, so he wasn't there, so I never got to meet up with him. This is at his wedding, which was a few years earlier, where he'd failed to tell me beforehand that he'd converted to Islam, and he was now called Ahmed. Consequently, his wedding was rubbish. I think it's a pretty good way to describe it. No beer, no cigarettes, no bacon sandwiches. But there was a bar next door, so while he was surrounded by his new Muslim family, I could nip out, have a good pint, cigarette, nibble on a bit of bacon and come back and wave at him. Very happy. But he gave me some very sage advice. I said to him, "I'm going to meet Karen." He said, "Oh, mate, you better check her bits." "I'm sorry, what do you mean, check her bits?" "It could be a bloke." Oh. Now this reeked of bitter experience for the man, And I thought, yeah, he's probably right. So I did, all okay there. So we had a nice time. I went back off to Africa and we arranged to meet up in Naples for Christmas. And I told her, and she says to me, "What do you want for Christmas?" I thought, yeah, looks like she might have a bit of money. "Can I have a BMW?" I said, "Sure." And sure enough, we met up in Naples. And did I get my BMW? Yeah, I got it. Actually, I've got it here. Cheap is the word. Yeah, so we had a lovely time in Naples, got to know each other. I'll leave out all the dirty bits, you don't want to know that stuff. But we had a lovely time there, got to know each other really well. And we said, you know, let's meet up in Naples. And so I've done Naples, already in Naples. So I said, okay, BMW's good, but I'll tell you better presents. It was my mum, bless her, God rest her soul. I was in Nepal 6 months, measuring the height of Everest, really big tape measure. And we were walking for 10 days, 14,000 feet, 100 quarters, and she sent me a pair of fluffy carpet slippers. Perfect, Mum. I was working in the Western Sahara, she sent me a watch that was waterproof to 50 fathoms. And Steve, I'll go back to Steve, another one from Steve, sorry. He said to me, he was having problems with his missus, he said, gotta get something for Christmas. I said, what does she want? She wants something for the bath. What are you gonna get her? I said, a toaster. Yeah, last one about Steve. I was in Nairobi handling an aircraft there, and he called me and he said, where are you? I said, I'm in Nairobi. He said, book me a room, I'm on my way. 3 hours later, he turns up, and he had this smell about him that was just so odd. And I said, Steve, what's that stink, mate? He said, you reek. And he said, oh, that's the missus. So I got hold of her shoes. I threw them all out in the roadway. She was known as the Imelda Marcos of Rwanda anyway. He said, I've got that litre bottle of Chanel No. 5, poured it over and I torched the lot. Oh, nice. But that explained the smell. If you can imagine leather, plastic, buckles, shoe soles and Chanel No. 5 burning. Yeah. We had a lovely corner of the bar to ourselves. It was wonderful. So, we're at this point now. In my career, I was at a bit of a crossroads. I was at a 16-year point as an officer. So I could stay in or leave, undecided. We figured we were going to stay together. We sort of got on all right. So we were talking about what we're going to do. I said, well, I'd like to stay in Italy. I love Italy. But not Naples, no. Naples is just too noisy and busy. And it has this bloody great smouldering volcano at the back of it, which I could see from my kitchen window. And that sort of put me off. No, we said, we want to be somewhere rural. So come the spring, her and her son Ben came down to do a bit of skiing. Well, that's what we told him. And we thought, right, we'll go to Abruzzo on the other side, on the Adriatic side, and have a look, see if there's anywhere we can find to live. So we dumped Ben at the ski slope. We went off, had a look around. We found this village, Palmley. It was very foggy and very quiet. Couldn't really see much, but it had a nice feel to it. So we said, yeah, that's not bad. And Ben called and said ski slopes are closed. You know, blah, blah, blah. We were an hour and a half away and freezing to death. So we went and picked him up, gave him a Nutella pizza. That shut him up. Then we called realtor, said, look, we want to have a look around the places. Can we do that? Yeah. So we did. So we went across the Vasto, looked around the Palmy area, and we were shown some real dumps. I mean, places that were just a pile of stones, some on a bleak hilltop. There was one you had to jump a gap to get to the bathroom. Well, I thought it was quite nice because it had a bathroom, most of them didn't. And eventually we came across this place that was just what we were after. It was rural, not isolated. It does get better. And Karen said, well, what do you think? I said, yeah, it's got a nice location. There's trees, there's olives, fruit trees, there's a couple of wells. You know, not bad. She said, well, I think we should go for that. So I said to Ben, her son, what do you think? He said, it's a shithole. Probably right at the time. Anyway, so the guy who owned the place gave us a glass of his homemade wine. Oh, jeez. I've still got the taste at the back of my throat of that one. And we went up to the local restaurant and we were sitting there as Carabinieri, the paramilitary police, guns, everything, uniform, having a glass of wine with lunch. And we were tutting and moaning about that. And I said, oh, geez, wine with lunch? 2 years later, wine was our lunch. So, I left the Air Force, motored across here, and I moved into this place. This is the only livable room. I've cleverly made it look really big. It's not really, is it? The sink's the only water. There was no toilet. No bathroom. Kay, bless her, she bought me a new shovel. Really nice. And actually, the first 2 years we were there, we had an old guy living just up the road from us in what actually was a ruin. And he was about 150 years old. No teeth, only one set of clothes. He didn't even bother with the shovel. he would come out of his house, amble down the field, and just squat down and have a dump. And he would wave at me. And I would wave back. And then, when Karen would go back to work in Europe, I'd do the laundry, have all the stuff out, go back in the house, come outside, Luigi would be there staring at her underwear. Really creepy guy. So my dad called, my dad said, I want to come and see what you bought. I thought, great. I thought, well, he can't stay here, obviously. So I booked him into a local agri tourism. It's like a B&B, but they grow everything on the farm. So I said to the lady, I wanted to say, tomorrow you'll meet my parents. I mixed up the word for parents, genitori, with another word, genitali. Oh, you probably see where this is going. I effectively told her that the next morning I would show her my meat and 2 veg. She didn't look upset, which is funny. But the next morning when Mum and Dad arrived, the look of relief on the woman's face was just gorgeous to watch. So my dad turned up, tutted a lot, said we slap a load of paint around. We got this one room looking good. The next room to it had droppings from some unknown animal in it. So we didn't go in that one. So we tended to stay in this one. I wish I'd had shares in IKEA because I bought every candle they had to heat the place. There was one plug socket. If I put the kettle in, everything else shut off. In the daytime, because it was winter, I put all the food outside and brought it in the winter because there was wild boar, wolves, all sorts of stuff around there. Not very pleasant. Rigged up a shower. It's a solar shower, but as Karen pointed out, normally you would hang those in the sunshine for the water to get warm. Not that sharp. Hung it under the biggest tree we have. Froze to death. Not very good. So, what we did was we hired a local builder. Sorry, I should go on about this. This is me being used to, thank you dear, looking smoke. I'm used to living rough. I worked on oil cruise in Central Africa for 2 years. So, Central African Republic, Chad and Sudan. And that's how I slept for months. When I say slept, I didn't. I lay there quivering like a baby, listening to everything running around me. But I got quick with the shovel. Never hung around. And yes, those are hippos. This is right on the border with Central African Republic and Chad. I was on a recce looking for water. And the guy said, oh, there's water there. And it was just a massive hippo, just moving, making squelching, sucking noise. It was amazing. Never seen anything like it. But I was also in the army. 6 years in the army. This was when I was about 8, by the look of it there. It's not hugely cute, but very rubbish at this. I had no ambition. I think that was spotted fairly quickly. Additionally, during 20 weeks of basic training to become a combat engineer, I recklessly grew 3 inches, and I got the bollocking of my life for that. But at the time I was 17, I was bottom of the food chain, absolutely loving it. You know, they would give me clothes, normally the sort of greenish colour. They would give me food 3 times a day, whether I wanted it or not. They had a roof over my head. Okay, it was shared with a lot of other farty, smelly, belchy, snory blokes. You get over that. And they paid me. I couldn't believe this. Now, most of this I just spent on, well, booze, cigarettes and loose women. The rest I just wasted, really. But I loved it. I seem to remember it was, because I was so young, I remember it just being muddy all the time. And it was things were heavy, and people shouted a lot. But I got to go to Norway a lot. As I say, I was in Nepal 6 months. I also spent a year in Germany as the last hope for mankind against the Red Hordes on the border. Now, if you think back to that time around 1980, that's why you slept safe, because I was there, standing up for you. And I also spent 3 months in the US, seconded to NASA, measuring gravity. I'll talk more about that in 2 weeks' time, because it sounds far-fetched, but it's absolutely true. But I also got in trouble a lot. But it was never my fault. I was a victim of circumstance all the time. I was that guy who, you're in the pub with your mates having a quiet beer, you go for a pee, you come back, there's tables chipped over, chairs flying, glasses being, sirens going. Okay, in front of the commanding officer, you know why you're here? No, I don't know why, I can't confess to anything. So that was, so let's get back to Italy. Sorry, I waffled away a bit. Then we'll go back to the house in Italy. So, moved in there, we hired a local builder, Massimo Chilli, lovely fella. I said, can I work for you? He said, free? I said, yeah, okay, you can. And I thought it'd be a great opportunity for me to learn Italian and learn how to build. So this is how I learned to build. I learned everything I needed to know about concreting, ductwork, fitting windows, everything. They did not teach me Italian, they taught me some obscure local dialect, and mostly just the swear words, which you only find out when you go to Rome and you ask for a cup of coffee, please, and you don't realise, you know? But I actually got very good at doing stonework. Stonework's lying around everywhere. So I built all these outside walls and terraces. I learned how to shape the stone, how to make cornices, and just build all this stuff. And how to do curved walls as well, which I then showed Massimo how to do. He never got the hang of that, really. So at this time, Kay was working at home, but travelling to Germany. So she'd get up at 4 in the morning, and she would disappear off to Rome, get a flight. She was getting really miffed off with it. So she started going on at me about her job and that, and what it's like. And I'm sorry, I have that male brain, which is sort of the cross-section of it here. It's got a limited short-term memory. So if you're talking about your job, nah, can't do it. Your haircut and any accompanying treatments that involve plucking or tweaking or waxing, no. How busy the stores are, not interested. Other women's husbands and how great they are at certain things, no. Children, especially ours, no, not interested. Oh, and the worst one, I think most of the men here understand on this one, the pain of childbirth. I'm sorry. You know, I wasn't this size, I was the size of a bag of sugar, you know? And I had a female colleague who said to me, the only way to get you to understand about the pain of childbirth is if I kick you in the nuts as hard as I can. I said, yeah, I countered there by saying, obviously it's not that bad thing. So I often hear women say, oh, I'd like another child. You never hear a bloke say, I would like another kick in the nuts. So when she finally did get me to concentrate, we realised we had a really nice looking house now. You know, I'd done all these paths, all these walls. This is a gas tank I built well around to make it look nice. But she said, I'm working, I'm not getting to enjoy it. Well, I didn't understand, I was enjoying it. I thought it was really nice. So she said, look, okay, what are we going to do? We're going to see if we can afford for me to give up work. We didn't have a mortgage. We didn't pay any tax. In fact, I went up to the local council to ask how much tax was, and they laughed. Now, they want people to live rurally in Italy, because everybody's just gravitating to the towns all the time. And I had a military pension, which will cover the essentials, like the electricity, the water, toothpaste, toilet, stuff we couldn't make. So we thought, you know, we'll have to grow our own food. But the only experience we had of gardening was laughing at amusingly shaped vegetables. Now, I still laugh at amusingly shaped vegetables. It's one of the highlights. In fact, I can't look at this one. It's going to set me off again. So yeah, okay. So I created a veg patch. So we had the wells, as I said. So we've got tanks and pumps, and I pumped from the wells into the tanks. Got the garden all laid out, started building stuff. You know, things like the canes here grew just over the other side of the fence for us. We didn't have to go and get those. We needed other equipment. So we got a rotavator. When you get married in Italy, they don't give you presents, they give you money. So that helped there. But we knew nothing. Like potatoes, I'd say like some potatoes, they would say red or white, not, you know, earlies, lates, fingerlings. No. It's red or white, a 20-kilo sack. We knew nothing about chitting them. We knew nothing about covering them over. We would buy transplants from the valley, this big, and stick them straight in the ground, not harden them off. We knew nothing about suckers on tomatoes or tying stuff up. Sorry, this is the military in me, it has to be a straight line. Can't bear it not to be. So I did all the digging, and then I left her to do the back break and stuff while I looked, you know, tired in the corner. And the amazing thing was, it actually worked. We started getting food. And we're still gobsmacked about that now. We still can't believe it. So, you know, all this stuff, all these onions. Okay, I know you're looking at that and thinking, why does she look like a convict? I will explain. We had a problem with moles in what we called our lawn. Mole, if you have moles in Canada, don't you? So they create molehills and make a mess. So we looked up how you get rid of this, and apparently if you put human hair on the molehills, that gets rid of them. I can't help much with that. So she said, I'll take one for the team. Thank you, dear. Sat her down, got the clippers. I neglected the short or long thing, and also neglected to try a little bit up the back first, and I went straight over the top. And then mistakenly went, uh-oh, and realised how vulnerable I was. But she forgave me. But here's the good part, well, forgive me, Dan. Here's the really good part. She got the call to say you could come and get your ID card now. And a driving licence is like that as well. It's brilliant. Interesting things to note on the ID card. It says born in Halifax, Canada, citizenship Dutch, and conjuguto Jarvis, that's constantly nagging, is it? Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, things to note for later. So, so the thing is, if you're growing your own stuff, you've got to either eat it, store it, swap something for it, or sell it. So we learnt from our neighbours how to do that. Passata. The Italians make buckets of this stuff. Our neighbour Nino grew 700 tomato plants. He had a huge family. So what you do, you lay them on a bed in your living room till they get soft. You sterilise the bottles and blanch them, get the skin off, you chop it up, mix it with basil off your garden, you boil it in the bottles, let it sit, and then you've got all this passata for the winter. I'll tell you, you open this bottle and it's like instant sunshine. It's just gorgeous. Because we had hundreds of tons of potatoes, we'd dig up like 20 kilos a day. I would sort them out for ones that we could store, ones we had to do scallops with, mashed, oil blanching for roast potatoes. I stuffed onions into Kay's tights and stockings, much better when she took them off. We also made pickles, huge tomatoes for making slow roasted tomato soups, brilliant. And we dried everything. We vacuum packed portions of fruit and veg. You can see there's chilies hanging up drying, there's squashes, all sorts of stuff. This is garlic, so any of the garlic wasn't good enough to keep and plant. We'd chop it all up, mix it with a bit of olive oil, and then put little balls there. Put them in the freezer, take it out the freezer in a bag. Anytime I needed garlic at all, throw one of those in the pan. Brilliant. Sun-dried tomatoes. We sold so many of these to the Italians because they liked the way we did it. Just scrape all out, a bit of salt and sun-dry them. And these are chilies. So we did dried chilies for chili oil and chili powder, chili flakes, all stuff like that. It was brilliant. But we also had olives. Now, you need quite a bit of equipment for olives. And also, you can't eat an olive straight off the tree unless you're a huge fan of projectile vomiting, as I found out. They are disgusting. They have to be treated with caustic soda and a salt solution. So you lay your nets out under the tree. This is called a clacker. It's a battery-operated hole. It just goes like this and knocks all the olives off. Or you have these little plastic cones and you scrape down the branches. And then you need some way of transporting them. We had this 30-year-old Piaggio three-wheeler called Doris. Beautiful vehicle. So we pack all the olives into the crates, 25, 30 kilos a crate, take it to the frantoio, the mill, and then bring it back. Now, this is, that dark green colour is what a first press extra virgin oil looks like. It is thick and green and horrible like that. But it gradually all settles down, which is why you have these things. I've got one just on the side there, so you can see. So you fill that in, and the sediment settles to the line, and then you've got beautiful clear oil. The stuff in the tins is what we sold, and we got a lot of money for that. We did really well. At Doris, we also used for foraging, that's the word, and when we went out to cut hay. So there she is, look, working away. It keeps her fit. So we were like a free grass cutting service to most of our neighbours. They go, oh, you can have those olives if you cut the grass underneath. So we'd go out and do this. And it was only 38 degrees that day. I don't know what she was moaning about, but she did moan quite a bit, to be honest. You know. But then You bundle all that up, you put it on the back of Doris, and then you get tourists taking pictures of you because you're such an idiot. Now, Doris, this is not a high-tech vehicle. There was no suspension at all. It was like being slapped on the arse with a paddle. There was no airbag. You had time to blow a balloon up. Sat-nav, that's Kay running alongside shouting directions through the window. And because it was like a motorbike seat like that with the two of us crammed in, if we were both in there, she had to work, you did the indicators and the windscreen wiper, didn't you? Yes. Like that. But we loved it. This is how it was delivered to us. The guy brought it in the back of a van, which I thought was very nice. So we get all this food, and we're out and about, and we see all this fruit. We see hawthorns and figs and sloes, and what sloes are, and other berries. And we thought we need somewhere relaxing. So we thought, I don't know, we'll make wine. We made wine from everything and anything. We could let people come to the house, and we'd say, what would you like? Would you like red, white, rosé, green or brown? Your choice. This, I'm afraid, our neighbour said, do you want the fruit from my tree? And I said, what fruit? I've never seen fruit on that tree. We sat under there many times having pasta and wine with him. And he says, yeah, it's jealousy. And we looked it up, and there were mulberries. This tree was just caked in fruit. So we put our olive nets underneath. I've got a bit of metal with a hook on it, put an umbrella up, and I shook the crap out of this tree. And we got all these mulberries. Took them back to the house to clean them up, and we started getting, having a bit of fun. Yeah, like that. And then we ended up like this. Not realising that it doesn't wash off for 4 days. We look like mass murderers. This is a walnut. And when the walnuts are ripe, the shell goes black and falls apart, and then you get your classic walnut you know. This is when they're raw, and it's on the 23rd of June every year. You pick them raw, and you put gloves on, and you cut them up on a glass board, because they will stain you black for life. And then you put it in 98% proof alcohol, which you can buy next to the children's store in our local supermarket, wasn't it? You leave it for 3 weeks, and then you get this nocino, which is a digestive. So after dinner, you have it, settles your stomach. It's very much like a Jägermeister. Really nice. And we also had access to elderberries. Just below us, this is our perimeter fence there, I had this whole load of elderberry trees. So we just go along there 3 or 4 times a year and just snip off these elderberries. And elderberry wine was the one, along with mulberry, I think, the Italians couldn't tell wasn't a great wine. It was that good. The rest of what we made was, but they were quite good. And Karen would fiddle about and strip them all off. So the natural progression after wine is, of course, beer. And we made beer from everything. You know, we did a rosemary and bay ale, which I absolutely loved. We made one from nettles, same patch of land where those the elderberries were. That was nettles in the spring, snip the tops up, fully clothed, see the gloves on, stinging nettles. Beautiful beer. We made one from pumpkins that was, we called that one stomach pumpkin. It was about right. And I said we had fruit trees, we had apple trees as well. So we had a press. This looks like she does all the work, doesn't it? Yeah. Sunday morning, sat next to a bag of rabbit food. Yeah, so we had a lot of apples, and people would give us more apples. And the Italians love cider. It's not something they make or get. So we would just swap that for anything and everything. So at this stage, we've got all our veg, we've got our booze sorted out. We weren't really thinking about livestock. However, and there's a good place to take a break. If you'd like to get a drink and have a refreshment walk around, I'll carry on in a minute. I've had a few questions. Yeah, just to confirm, this is actually all true. It'll be less believable in this next bit, but it is all true, I assure you. Right, so I mentioned before that we got all the veg sorted out, the house was sorted, and we got all the booze we could bathe in. It was quite good. So we wanted a bit more, and we wanted to go a bit easier, and we figured that chickens was probably the easiest part. So we built a variety of houses for chickens, not knowing what the hell to do. We'd never had chickens before. She's an accountant. I was military. We didn't know what to do. So we put a shed up, put a nest box in, we got all that sorted out. Asked a friend where we get chickens from. He said, oh, if you drive down to the main road to Vasto Road on a Saturday morning at the gas station, there's a guy in a lorry who sells chickens. Fantastic. We drove down there, sure enough, there's this truck all open up, chickens everywhere. And I said, right, Karen's Italian wasn't as good as mine, which was not good anyway. I said, I'll deal with this, love. I'll do this in English so you understand. I went to the guy and I said, we'd like to have some chickens, please. He said, what for? I said, Karen, he says, what for? Well, tell him we like chickens. We like chickens. He goes, no, what for? Eggs or meat? Eggs or meat? Eggs. Eggs. What size? He says, what size? She says, well, the big ones, we might get double yolkers or something. Eh? Well, the big ones, double, he's going, no. No. What size chickens? Do you want this one? Or this one? No. So I had to mime ready to lay, which didn't go terribly well. And we got the chickens. We also stupidly bought a cockerel. We didn't know you didn't need a cockerel to get eggs. We thought, you wouldn't do them otherwise. We got these things home, we let them loose in the area, wait for the eggs, no eggs. After about 12 days or so, one of them got itself stuck in a bramble at the back. Karen went round there, pile of 36 eggs at the back of the hutch. So we played egg roulette, that was a fun one. And we played long distance egg throwing, that was a fun one. But we also had the problem because this cockerel was what I would call in English a gobshite. It just cockereled all day, all night. Not at dawn, when we thought it should. It just did it when it fancied it. It would have yodeling contests with the chickens 3 k's away. It was also very aggressive, and it henpecked one of the hens until it, pretty much killed it. I said to Karen, we can't let this go, we can't lose the chicken. I think we should pluck it and roast it. We didn't know that egg-laying hens don't have any meat on them. So she says, I'll pluck it. I'll hold the torch, you pluck it, love. Yeah, she did that. We also were unaware that if you dunk it in hot water, boiling water, the feathers just fall off, apparently. So she spent like 4 hours doing that. And at the end, we were left with, I'll describe it, it was like a skin bag with some bones in it. It was like a giant scrotum. It was disgusting. We didn't roast it. But later on, we did get meat chickens. Same bloke, he was loving that. And they used to be 5 kilos in weight. Their legs would break, they were so big. It was amazing. So this is the final iteration of our chicken coop, the super duper superb version, which has got a nest box outside, doors here, there's flaps that are operated on strings to keep out ferrets and snakes, because you have big yellow snakes that steal the eggs, all coloured in, beautiful. But we wanted a bit more. So I said to Karen, I fancy getting a cow. And she said, nothing bigger than me will come in this garden. I was like, shit. So that means no ostriches, no giraffes, no alpacas. So we sort of settled on goats. Yeah, I'll do that. So I put her through an intensive training program. The goats arrived. Immediate disaster. We hadn't really considered this properly. It sounds like a bit of a threat, doesn't it? So we built a nice house. Water inside, trough on the outside. We have a little play area, a little enclosed area to keep them in, a milking shed and a paddock at the back. Lovely. Guy brought the goats in, he went, this is beautiful, beautiful. He said, they're ready for milking. All we have to do, put some grain in the bowl, give it a rattle. They'll come over. The boss, the queen, will go first, they'll all go in order, you milk them, you make the cheese, everybody's happy, butterflies, singing birds, great. Awesome. That night, we shook the bowl, they ran the other way. They went into the corner where the brambles were and mocked us. If you didn't know, a goat mocks in the corner. And we were in tears, didn't know what to do. The next morning we got up and I gradually reduced the area they were in with fencing until I could get in there, dive in the brambles, grab them by the back leg, Kay would wrap a rope around it, tie it up. We'd milk them, great. Not really great, I should say. But that evening after we'd attempted milking, our friend Francesco turned up and he said, hey, I love goats. I won't do the accent, okay? He said, I love goats. When I was a boy, I used to lie underneath and squirt the milk in my mouth. Please do not demonstrate that to me now. Thank you. And he said, when are you going to milk the goats? I said, I've just finished. And he grabbed the goat, rammed its head between his legs and went, okay. So, he showed Karen how to milk a goat. And he then said to me, right, you need to dominate the male. This is Jerry, the male. He's the most docile male. He's big. He was only just under your height limit, wasn't he? But he says you need to dominate this thing. I said, well, okay, how do I do that? So he got and he rattled it. Jerry comes over, and he went smack between his eyes. And Jerry's like, what? He says, now you. I said, oh, what? Yeah. So I rattled it, and Jerry's like, all right. So I went smack. Jerry's like, oh, no. But he paid us back. He went over to the corner of the shed, he scratched his arse on it and moved it 3 feet. So Francesca says, Rob, I've got the milk, I'll show you how to make cheese. He said, please, would you? Because we literally no idea. He went up to the chemist in town, got some rennet, came back, and he showed Karen how to make cheese. We made some fabulous cheese. I mean, she was making ricotta, it was a chili cheese, hard, soft, Camembert. That was my favourite, Camembert. And we adapted fruit presses. I built this dryer to hang in the roof to dry the cheese off. You know, there's not much better, to be honest, than a nice chilled grass and milk. Fresh goat's milk chilled. It's just gorgeous. And we sold tons of this stuff. But we had to evolve. So gradually I turned it into a condominium. I put 2 bedrooms on the outside, with the goats constantly stealing the tools. Anything orange, wasn't it, they stole, yeah. We built this is her son Ben, by the way. Nice covered feed area, I got a bedstead and built a hay feeder. We transported them, we've got a new one in our Fiat Panda, which was very unstaged. We stopped at the supermarket on the way home and it bleated in the car park and upset a lot of people. And she would actually take them out, so she'd take the queen goat on a rope and just go out for about a kilometre around our place. And they would just clear up grass and all that. But, you know, there's things about goats. They're not that sharp, they're fun, they're not that bright. The guy at the back there is Sydney. Sid and Nancy were a pair. He's the male. He replaced another male we had, which we named totally wrong. He was called Rambo, but he was gender challenged. When I went to dominate him, he cried. So, and it wasn't all rainbows and butterflies. We did have problems. So, we had this problem where the big goat, we had Barbara, who was fairly athletic. She jumped the fence, landed on a chicken, and pancaked this thing. I mean, I was like, oh God. I wasn't even sure it was a chicken. So I said to Karen, do you want me to? She went, no. So I thought, I'll get rid of it. So I picked it up and I managed to frisbee it about 300 feet across the field. That's how bad it was. So, again, you know, you got the goats, they're not cost effective. They're fun but not cost effective. We wanted a bit more. So, what's next? I don't know, pigs. Let's get pigs. We knew a guy in the village, Gabriel, who was a pig farmer. And he looked like a pig farmer. You know, the kind of guy who thinks 50 Shades of Grey is about his underwear. He's like that. And he said, yeah, I've got a pair for you. And we went out to have a look. I said, oh yes, they're pigs. Because we knew what they looked like. That was about the limit of it. And he said, great, you knock up a house, I'll bring them down. And he gave us a pheasant, which we never understood why he gave us a pheasant. We didn't really know what to do with that, did we? I think the chickens killed it. Yeah. Poor thing. Anyway, the pigs arrived. And we built this nice little ark and put it in a nice little area. Every day they would get in it, stand up and move it around. So every morning I'd come out and go, where's the... Jeez, it's over there now. So in the end I had to build a bigger house and put this inside that. And this is Matt and JC. They're named after Karen's niece and nephew. Yeah. They're a nice pair and they duly dropped 8 piglets. We sold 6, kept 2. And it was nice, we liked the pigs, but what Gabrielle hadn't told us was that you had to separate the male from the female after they've given birth. It's all this learning process. So I put a wall across inside, which Matt ate. He then systematically ate the house as well. Now people say to us, you shouldn't name animals that you intend to eat. Well, you have to. You have to know who's mated with who, who's related to who, how many litters they've had. You know, it doesn't always, like her sister and her husband, Janice and Stephen, doesn't work for pigs. You know what I mean? So you do have to, no, it wouldn't work, would it? We started to build a rotation system. So this is the final evolvement of that house that he ate. I had to build one out of blocks that he couldn't eat. This is the love shack, not for me, incidentally, I'm just demonstrating the size there. But that's where the male was. Sorry, Karen, yes. That's where the male was. So we had a male area where he would do his thing, and then we had this area where all the females were, another area where they all gave birth. So you had this all separated, and you have a nice little separation system so that you can move them without any stress. Okay, stress-free movement. Gabrielle told me that all you had to do was walk along behind the pig and just tap it on the arse with a bit of wood, and it'll go wherever you want. Just like, and that's what he did. He demonstrated like that. I said, well, that sounds easy. So this is the video of us moving JC to the birthing area. And what I've done, I put music over this so you can't hear me swearing, and you can't hear Karen screaming. So then we concreted that path in there. Now this one, we used to let it out to eat acorns on this path, but it decided the acorns were better in the chicken shed, so it busted in there. It ate so many acorns it couldn't move. So I had to carry it back to its pen. And we also found out through that the fence line, pigs would just snuffle that and lift it up. The babies, when they're small, and they get very active very quickly, they just went through the fence. We'd find them everywhere. I was poking them back through the fence. It was just terrible. Now the thing about when you're breeding animals and rotating them round, it's going to sound a bit sordid and that, but you really have to know when they've done the deed. Now I'm not saying I watch them all the time, because I basically sound a bit of a, weirdo. But you do have to watch. Now goats, although the courtship routine is quite verbal and they chase around and he'll do something called the Fleming, where he'll go against the side of the goat's arse, and if it's sat on top of the cable reel, we watched him systematically destroy a cable reel, headbutting it, just to get to her. And they pee on themselves to make themselves more attractive. I did that when I was 17 at the back of a pub, and I was only more attracted to the local constabulary. And I did consider it. I thought, maybe this works in the country. Maybe I should, pee on myself in the shower and see if Kay runs up the steps and it goes flying. No, it didn't work. Anyway, a goat's, I'm going to use the word penis here, sorry, but a goat's penis is very odd. I'm not a penis expert, I've only ever had the one. But a goat's penis, how do I describe it? Okay, when I had my first car, I had a radio, and this is in the days when you had to put the aerial up first, and then get in the car and start it, and you had the radio if you forgot it. And then you get a bit of money, when you start the ignition, the aerial goes up like that. That's what a goat's penis is like. It can appear from nowhere and scare the crap out of you. You never turned your back on Sydney. Now, pigs are a different kettle of fish. They like to be a bit more public about it. So whenever I walk past, Mr. P, who was the pig who lived in the White House, he would be humping. He would hump anything pig-shaped. Without a formal introduction, he would just do it. And always when I was around, I was starting to feel like pig Viagra. You know, it's not like I wore anything sexy when I was looking after the pigs. I saw one time, I walked past and he tried to give me a high three. What was that about? Oh, did you know that, you probably did, that pigs have a corkscrew penis? That is not a pig's penis. That is actually a corkscrew. I should just point that out at this stage, and was confused. Now, I know they're corkscrew, I saw it many times. Now, we got to this stage where we had to knuckle down and realise that we got the pigs for meat. So we were going to have to get on with that. So this time, it was me who went through the intensive training. Now, the first time, we got Gabriel to come and help us. Gabriel, the pig farmer. He turned up dressed like... It was very odd. He was dressed like he had an appointment later with his bank manager, but he'd been dressed by his mother, who had severe astigmatism. If you can imagine that. But anyway, it wasn't nice. We never enjoyed it, but it was a necessity. And it was worth it for the meat. If you look at the colour of the pork, it's dark. You know, our pigs were fed fruit, cherries, peaches, apricots, figs, acorns, all sorts of stuff. And we learned how to do all this. I built a smoker, the box here, apple branches smouldering away, holes in the bottom, put stuff in the top, smoke it. So we had apple smoked bacon, we smoked cheese, we smoked garlic, and we got pretty good at this. We were also very good at sausages. Now Karen's actually the queen of the butterfly knot, so that's one of these. And we would make cumberlands, we'd make breakfast sausages, but pork and cider, no brainer. But we also cured meats for making things like ham and prosciutto and salmini. And it was, pretty good. Now the locals taught us how to do this first time. This is a ventricina. It's a very local thing, lots of fat and lots of paprika and chili powder. Quite difficult to do, but again, you get all this stuff at your local supermarket in Italy. It's amazing. And they would say, okay, you need 17 grams of salt per kilo of meat. And you'd say, how much for the pepper and chili? Oh, I should explain where we were. It's if you draw a line from Rome across to the Gargano Peninsula, we're about 2,500 feet up in the hills, about 30 k's from the coast. Little village, Palmy. 900 people, only 5 surnames, 2 of which were tourists. A bit like places around here, I understand. And everybody knew everybody else's business. A bit like places around here, I understand. Now, I was given the honour of laying the town wreath on their Armed Forces Day, November the 4th. So we'd do a service in the church and I'd walk all the way up through these streets to the memorial with the entire village walking behind me. It was beautiful. That's the castle, is the council offices, and we were married in that castle. So this is the mayor, Roberta, who learned English so she could marry us. And she did the usual bit, said, you may kiss the bride. We did that, we got up to leave, she went, oh no. Said, hey, sit down. She went through at least an hour of rules, which we figured was mostly about who got custody of the cat. That's about what we could work out. And we had the wedding reception at the same agriturismo that I put my mum and dad in. And we drove there on the bike I used to get up and do English lessons for kids. I forgot to put fuel on it. So luckily, we're at the bottom of a hill, and we managed to coast down the bottom of the hill and stop at the house, where there were people at the wedding we'd never seen before. Mothers-in-laws, babysitters, all sorts of people we'd never seen before. Right, the language thing with Roberta, it sort of struck home with us. I had the language skills of a small hamster. I'm not very good. And there's somebody in the room who's even worse. She mixed up the word for husband and wife for years and would tell everybody in the village that her wife was at home cooking dinner. They thought I was a cross-dressing lesbian. Now, the language problem didn't really strike us. We were good at stuff like gardening, building, crops, all that stuff. But if you ever got injured and had to see a doctor or go to hospital, it got a bit more difficult. I scratched my cornea when we were cutting wood, even though I was wearing safety glasses. It managed to go up underneath. Karen managed to trap a nerve and lost the use of her hand. And on the same day, I got stung by a scorpion and lost the use of my hand. We were a real comedy act for about a week there. This was from that damn cockerel. I was doing the thing. So, Darcy said, well, why did we want to leave? Why decide to leave? Well, we'd done it. We'd actually got self-sufficient in terms of food and booze and all that stuff. But, we had the best fed animals in the country. They got fresh figs every day, peaches, apricots. All the animals here, they'd see me go to the fig tree and they'd all start screaming and bleating and clucking. And, people thought we were slaughtering a pig some days, but it was just this. But it wasn't just the animals, we were brilliantly fed as well. This is a porchetta. It's a pork belly stuffed with the best bits of pork and then herbs and garlic and slow roasted. Gorgeous. We were making our own charcuterie boards. Karen was stuffing zucchini flowers with fresh ricotta. We were making our own pesto, our own pasta. Caprese, growing our own mushrooms. I even built a fireplace outside, a huge one, so we could make our own pizza. This thing here is called a copa, and underneath that is like an earthenware bowl, which you stuff with your veg, your tomatoes, your chicken, all that stuff in, put the metal top on, and then you put hot coals on top. Every half an hour you sweep that off, put some fresh ones on, and you get this beautiful roast succulent dinner. If you remember to actually get it out there, which we quite often forget, don't we? But, what's the problem here? I still couldn't produce toothpaste or toilet roll. I won't discuss that. I did try. But, we had everything like we were selling an awful lot of stuff, but we were in a routine. Every day we knew what we were going to be doing. Like Nocino Day. I know 23rd of June I'm going to be making Nocino. We never had an hour off. We never had a day off. It was the same every day. So we sat down with a nice glass of brown one day and discussed our options, Now, because of our age, my lack of education, my absolutely dreadful passport photo, a lot of countries were out of reach for us. So I said to Karen, what we're going to do, I looked at some old pictures of her, and it looked like she was born in the 1920s in Halifax and was tortured a lot. And she'd been working in Europe for 30 years, and she'd taken Dutch citizenship, as you saw earlier, and she'd had to give up her Canadian citizenship. The Dutch bullied her into it. At the time, not a problem. She thought she was going to be staying in Holland with her son. But he didn't want to leave Holland, and things changed. She met me. Poor thing. So she said, if we're going to leave here, I want to be closer to my family in Halifax. I said, okay, that's Canada. The weather's rubbish there. I'm not going there. This is the 30th of June in Palmley. This hailstorm took all the blossom off our olive trees. It took all our crops down to nothing. It destroyed our garden. It flooded our animal areas out. It was just absolute carnage. And it snowed there as well. We would get a metre of snow in a day. And you can't just look out the window and go, oh, that's pretty. Pigs can only cross the legs for so long, and they will not pee or poop in their own house. They are very clean animals. You have to get to them. Yeah, we skied once, didn't you? She skied from our door down the bottom of the road, neglecting to think about how she would get back up. I didn't see her for hours, did I? It was a really nice afternoon. So we lost power for a whole week once, and all we had was the 2 fireplaces to keep us warm. You see, we got a stew going, the kettle going, bread proofing underneath. And it was fine until our neighbour said, I'll bring my generator so you can plug it in and fix your freezer. Thank you. He plugged the generator in, and it was a lovely warm 24 degrees in there, and our fridge caught fire. So we had to open all the doors and windows. I had to fire extinguish the entire room round, and we had to let all this stuff out, and it was 6 degrees, I think, when he left. Anyway, we took some advice on what to do, and it appeared the only way we could get to Canada was for Karen to be out of the equation, and for me to apply for a study visa. 55 years old, very grumpy face. I did not want to go back to school. Who would, 55. So I said, all right, if I'm going to do it, it's got to be something I enjoy doing. And what I enjoy doing is baking. I love baking. Bit handsy, yeah? Okay, but we made all our bread for a long time. I made beautiful biscotti. We made trays of cakes for all our neighbours. And so, yeah, that would do it. So we found a course. And then we end up backwards and forwards to Rome, to the embassy paperwork. It's an interrogation into your financial affairs. It really is quite intrusive. We also had to take English tests, adjudicated by someone who didn't speak English very well. And then you sweat on the visa. I did better than you, by the way, didn't I? Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and then we sweated on the visa, and finally, it came. So I was off. And that is it for part one. Now in part two, I'm going to talk about how we found ourselves with the means, the opportunity, most importantly the willingness to try and make a difference in our community. And what we did have was this massive knowledge about growing stuff. How to grow as much as I can. And cheaply, the goods, the stuff that you can produce quickly and in bulk. And it's not just in the summer, you can do it in the winter as well if you're a trained baker. So I've got the best of both worlds. I can supply stuff all year round. So that's what I'm going to talk about in the second part. Now, I'm going to do the quick quiz before we do questions. Quick prizes. Right, who can remember the name of my imaginary friend? Yes, it was Timothy. So you saw him. Oh, he saw it, okay. And the second one, what was the name of our three-wheeler? Doris, is it Doris? What was the third one? What's that say? Oh yeah, what was the name of the gender-challenged goat that cried? No, he was a good one. He was completely wrongly named. Rambo. Yay! Rambo! Yes. Alright, so thank you very much indeed for your wonderful attention. And please come along in 2 weeks' time for the second part. Oh, sorry, questions?
Somebody was asking if you sell all those fruits and vegetables that you make. I just want to tell you right now, he gives it all away to the food bank. He doesn't sell any of that. They. Are there any other questions? Yes?
Where did you sell the produce that you made in Italy?
People will come to us. We had guys just turn up at our house in the middle of nowhere and say, "You've got sun-dried tomatoes, you've got cheese. If you have, can you tell me so?"
We'd also been property management for a villa that was rented out on a weekly basis and stuff. So we got to know those people as they were staying there and invited them down to come shopping.
You didn't mention that you started We Feed.
You're quite correct, yeah. We Feed Lunenburg is an initiative I started. It's on Facebook at the moment. 307 people are in this group. Now, because I donate quite a lot, and my friend Linda helps us collect it, and we take it to the food bank, we thought, why not ask anybody else who plants anything, if you have anything spare. Do you have a spare zucchini? A couple of tomatoes? You don't have to make a massive commitment to grow a lot of stuff. That intimidates people. I don't like that. But if you've got something spare and it's going to go to waste, I'll take it. And alternatively, if you have a space that you're not using, you can scatter some lettuce seeds in there and do 20 lettuce for the food bank. Now this summer, we'll be setting up a collection point, Karen and I, where on a Sunday you can come before the food bank and just drop off any spare fruit and veg you have, and then we'll coordinate getting it to the food bank. So that's what that's about. It's trying to build a self-sufficient community where we all grow the food that the food bank needs. So the food bank gets the best quality stuff. It doesn't have to be what's left over and brought down for them. And it's the same with the bread as well, sorry.
You described yourself in the beginning as a 17-year-old, sort of ambitionless.
Yeah,
Going
nothing's
to do-
changed.
No. I want to know what happened to you.
Ah, okay.
To you two, that you.
Well,
I can't imagine what your day was. You must have started at 4 in the morning and
yeah.
went to bed at 3 in the morning.
We got up with the sun and we went to bed with the sun. And we still do that. We have not been able to get out.
I'm going to break that at all. Well, when I was 17,
What happened that you became so ambitious, so invigorated?
wow, I never saw myself as that.
Okay.
That's very kind of you, thank you. Yeah,
You did join the army.
I joined the army. You know why? Because I left school and I was a trainee accountant. No offense, Tom. Okay. And I said to the guy, how long will it take to qualify? He said, 7 years. I said, no way. He said, yes, wait. Oh, shit. And I was walking through town in Leicester, and I went past the recruiting office, and there's pictures of people paragliding, surfing, you know, and I thought, I want that. So I signed up. And I went and told my dad, not impressed. Yeah, so I ended up in the army. So the point is, I'd rather be shot at than be an accountant, is basically what I'm getting at. But yeah, I did 6 years in the army. Then I went and did the work on the oil cruise in Africa. I came back from there, and I retrained as a computer programmer. And I worked my way up from operator to analyst programmer to implementation analyst on database 2 systems. And then I got bored again, and I joined the Air Force. Yeah, so I did 6 years in the army, and then 16 in the Air Force, 6 in the reserves. Any other questions? Yes, sir?
How large was your property?
It's tough to tell, isn't it? Because we were split up. What we had was the garden area you saw there. Then we had that veg patch, was probably half an acre at most. And then the rest was the trees, because you can't do much under the olives, but we had about 120 olive trees spread around, which were a lot of work. You do a lot of pruning and trimming in the spring and the autumn. But the actual veg patch, we think we've probably got more space now. And you'll see in the next one how I managed to, because you can't grow in the ground here, I've discovered it's a patch of rock with a bit of dirt thrown in the middle. So I had to go up. But I'll explain how I did that. And we think we've actually got, in terms of soil area, because we were so rubbish at it, we'd just dig a hole and throw stuff in. We didn't know about weeding either, did we? We went a whole week once watering the paths and not the crops because we hadn't weeded and we didn't realise. So we were just absolutely terrible at it. But we managed to make it work.
We did that for about 10 years.
Yeah.
I think, I don't know if you mentioned that, but it was about 10 years of full-on production.
Yeah. Any other questions? No, thank you all very. Oh, sorry, no. Oh, yep. Oh, yes. We sold it at massive detriment, really, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, we sold all the animals off. He came to Canada in July of 2017. I stayed back, and we had our 2 dogs still, but no other animals. And I had to eat my way out of the freezer.
Yes.
I don't cook, so he does all the cooking. And I just took out a frozen meal and put it in a pot or zapped it in the microwave or whatever, and ate my way out of the house, literally.
We do the same thing here, because we got so ingrained in that culture of making sure we had enough food for the winter. We still have freezers full now of food. So we don't do any grocery shopping in the winter at all, and we eat fresh in the summer. And I'm just trying to get, if we can do that self-sufficient community thing and make sure everybody's looked after, we'll be very happy. Thank you all very much for your attention.